Thank you so much, because I know you're a busy man trying to get a production started in a brand new place. And that's got to be, I'm wondering why you still have hair.
Well, yeah, I'm fortunate to have a mother that gave me good hair, but that doesn't mean that there's still not a lot of pressure and stress. I probably feel it in different ways. But yeah, being here in Utah, I just got in a couple nights ago. I love the area. I love the people. I mean, it's wonderful, and that makes it a lot easier. But the fact that season one of The Chosen has been doing so well, for some reason, doesn't seem to take off any of the pressure for future seasons. You'd think that the media landscape would release some pressure when you got a lot of fans, but that hasn't been the case. So we still got a lot of work to do.
I would imagine because it is fan supported. I think it's the number one, funded, crowdfunded production ever.
Right.
I think that increases the pressure because you have a responsibility to these individual investors to get it right.
Yeah, that's true on one hand, for sure. And we take that, we ended up, season one was financed with over $10 million from 19,000 people. So you feel like that's sacred money. I mean, we take that very seriously. But on the other hand, they love the show so much and are so supportive, and we have ownership of the show now and don't have to, a lot of times when there's a big studio or TV network writing a big $20 million check for you, that's good on one hand, but then on the other hand, you go by their rules. And in this case, we're making our rules, which is great, and that's what our fans love about the show. So, so they release some of the pressure.
I think that's where you kind of differ with this, because number one is I think producers generally are scared of faith-based programming. I think that there is kind of a stigma about it, and maybe that's residual from the 1980s or so. Was it hard getting this project off the ground that way?
Well, I would say that, interestingly enough, the financing for this project came based on a short film that I did for my church's Christmas Eve service back in 2017, coming off of a big career disappointment that I'd had. A big movie that I'd done with Hollywood had bombed at the box office, and I was left with a very uncertain future. And I poured myself into this little short film for my church. And long story short, that ended up being the catalyst and what people watched to get their interest in this show. And it ended up raising over $10 million. We call it God's impossible math, that this little loaves and fishes that I did on my friend's farm in Illinois ended up resulting in this big thing. So that part was actually easy, I suppose. I mean, in as crazy of a way as that sounds, it's getting people to watch the show that proved to be difficult because of the stigma you're talking about. A lot of people just are, when they hear there's a new Jesus show out, they're either thinking, well, I don't know if I can trust it because typically Bible projects are tough to, we don't know if it's going to be faithful to the scripture. But more than anything, we hear people saying, I didn't watch this for a long time because I assumed it would be cheesy. I assumed it would be low quality. And then for whatever reason, we're just hearing over and over again that people just didn't want to watch it. And then when they did, they became passionate evangelists for it. And it's really just exploded in the last 6 months.
And if we could really kind of dissect this, people that have played the role of Christ in movies approach it, I think, the same way that people approach playing Sherlock Holmes. They have a strict kind of wall around them, where Jonathan has taken that character and made him very human and likable. I mean, the faithful always say we love Christ, but do you like him? And this show actually shows a side of him that's humorous and I think it's a little deeper.
Right. And that's what's been interesting about it, is by focusing on Christ's humanity in this show and showing things like him dancing with his friends, making jokes, laughing, dressing his own wound, stretching out his sore muscles, making his own food and, starting a fire and all that. You'd think that might detract from his divinity. But in fact, it's been the opposite. We still, of course, in season one have plenty of miracles. We don't shy away from presenting Jesus as the Son of God. But by showing those human moments and by really stressing that, in fact, more than other, I think, productions have done, for many people, it's enhanced his divinity and their relationship with Christ. And they've said thinking that the creator of the universe lived like me and told jokes and experienced disappointment and all of those things. It makes it more well-rounded, and I think that's been one of the key secret sauces to the show.
Well, and to let you know that I've actually, seen the episodes there, the scene where he goes to the wrong fountain, is just wonderfully done.
Well, I will say that's a blooper. We did that on the side, but yes, we had this running gag, and I think it helped, even though it wasn't on screen for the official show. I think that has helped us as we've made the show. Is we've had this running joke, Jonathan and me, who plays Jesus, that Jesus is the creator of the universe, can do miracles, can raise the dead, but he can't tell north from south, and always gets lost. And so we have had this kind of running joke about it. And I think that helps us as we're making the show, just kind of like takes a little bit of the pressure off, portraying this role that we take so seriously. And then it just makes its way into the show a little bit by giving Jesus, some elements of humor throughout the episodes. People just love it. I mean, they just love it every time we do what we call a Jesus joke.
How did you find Jonathan?
It's an interesting story. About 7 years ago, I was doing a short film for my church again. This was back in, I think, 2013, 14, something like that. And I was doing a short film about the crucifixion of Christ from the perspective of the two thieves. And we were casting the two thieves because they had the bulk of the time in the short film. Jesus shows up near the end. And Jonathan had actually auditioned for one of the roles of the thieves and did a great job. But the problem was I didn't have a good Jesus. The people who were auditioning were Jesus were lousy. And I hadn't put as much effort into casting that role because it was smaller. So I had Jonathan audition for Jesus, and 10 seconds into it, I thought, oh my goodness, this guy is unbelievable. And then when we were filming, I really thought this is the best portrayal of Jesus I've ever seen. He's got the masculinity combined with that gentle, kind spirit, and typically that's hard to find. But he just embraced it. And over the next few years, we did a couple more vignettes for my church and short films. And so when it came time that we had the opportunity to do this show, he was the first person cast, and he's just absolutely brilliant in the role. And I think also has a mix of genuine talent, but also I think fear of not getting it right. And I think we both have this passion to make sure that we get it right. And he's just been brilliant. As
the director of those episodes, do you allow some improvisational to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, we and the cast, we really love the script. And I say that, as one of the writers, I know that may sound arrogant, but I think a lot of prayer, a lot of time, a lot of preparation goes into the scripts. So when we get to shoot, we feel like we're really ready and we're really prepared, which allows for us to add a little bit on the set occasionally. So yes, there is some improvisation. It's mostly in little bits here and there, or it's like the day before, one of the actors will come to me and say, "This line doesn't feel authentic. What about this?" And so we definitely do that a lot because we're obsessed with authenticity. We're obsessed with finding the truth and the humanity of these people. We don't want this show to feel formal and staged and presented like a lot of Bible projects do. So that's where some of the improv comes in.
I would think there is some inspiration, that comes with playing these roles.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I think a lot of the actors who've taken these roles haven't been very familiar with the Bible in their life. And in some ways you might think, oh, well, that would be a problem, if they don't know as much about what they're doing. But in many ways, it's actually been interesting to see as they've dove into the scripture and dove into these scripts and exploring these characters from a human perspective and not from this reverent, these guys were saints, these guys or these women, were these heroes of scripture that we need to honor in some way. We definitely feel a sense of honor, but we're really trying to explore that these people were human beings first. And that's a key point to making sure that the audience can actually connect.
I have to ask you about working with Eric Avari. I love that guy. Everything he's in, I'm just always blown away.
Yeah, he plays Nicodemus. And I didn't know this when I cast him, but it was actually my son's idea. My son is a movie geek and knows a lot about actors, and so he was sending me names of ethnic actors who were really good because we wanted this to look like first century Israel, so we couldn't have a bunch of white guys playing these roles. And when he mentioned Eric Avari and sent me that picture, I was like, oh, I love that guy. I'm like, he'd be the perfect Nicodemus. So I sent him a letter and I just said, look, I think you'd be perfect for this role. You're my first choice. And just so you know that this isn't going to feel like a typical Bible project. It's going to be very raw and real. And I think you'd like the character. And he loved it. He loved the script and took the role. What I didn't realize at the time was that he had actually retired from the business. And his agent just decided to, send him this letter and the script. And he came out of retirement to play the role because he liked it so much.
Wow,
so that's great. He's phenomenal. I mean, and he was a great, I think, because most of the other actors are relatively new and unknown. And I think he also set a good tone of professionalism on the set.
Tell me a little bit, because I know that, on YouTube and other places I've seen you talk about the show, but one of the most interesting things that you've talked about is creating the actual opening for the show.
Yeah. So the opening, you're talking about the opening credits?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the opening credits, I really wanted the credits to kind of be an announcement of what this show is going to be about and the style in which the show is going to be portrayed, because we wanted you to know right away, this is not your typical Bible project or Jesus show. Now, the stories were still going to be faithful to the Gospels, of course. I'm a believer. I was a Bible student in college. I take this very seriously, but the style and the approach to these stories was going to be, we wanted it to be very timeless. And by timeless, I mean, we don't want you to feel like, even in the music, it's all first century. We want you to feel like these stories span centuries. And so the music that we chose for the opening credits is a mix of Southern gospel with slave spiritual, with even some Middle Eastern drone. And the reason that we chose that, and in the lyrics of it, I think also are a call to action. It says, got no trouble with the mess you've been. Walk on the water. Come in the water with us. Because the music of slave spirituals is oppression mixed with hope. I mean, some of the most hopeful, beautiful songs came out of slave spirituals because they were experiencing tremendous, deep oppression, but were longing for hope and for rescue. And that's what the Jews were experiencing in the first century. And so we thought that was a way to kind of express that, but in a timeless sense. And then the actual graphics of the opening credits. I wanted this kind of Saul Bass feel. Saul Bass was the designer of the opening credits of all the Alfred Hitchcock films, and just thought this graphic approach to it was going to be timeless. But you see all these gray fish going in one direction slowly, and then one by one, a fish turns teal and goes the other direction. And by the end, there's 13 fish, which represent Jesus and the 12 disciples. They're teal, which is the color of life, but they're going against the current in this circle. And that was another kind of just subtle statement that we were making about what the show is about. And I think what life can be about sometimes is sometimes you do have to go against the current when you're pursuing your faith.
Let's talk a little bit about your own personality, because you're a musician. You're also a poker player. So how do you bring those things to bear when you're directing and creating? I mean, obviously you pull from those things.
Yeah, you've done your research. That's good. Well, with the musician part, I'm not a professional musician, but I have enough knowledge of music to be dangerous. And so where I think my music background helps is I think musically. I mean, I think rhythmically. And so the dialogue in the show has a certain rhythm to it. And then my work with the composers who are geniuses, Dan Hasseltine from Jars of Clay and his composing partner, Matt Nelson. I can't do what they do, but I am able to speak into what I'm wanting and how I see it and how I think it'll help the scenes. And I think that when I'm directing the scenes, I'm not only thinking rhythmically with the dialogue, but also I can hear where the music is going to come in. And I think that helps. My poker playing passion, I think that's poker in many ways. I think I took to it years ago because it's human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of I have a mathematics mind, which also helps me in my editing and helps me in my approach to the scenes. But I also think I became a much better director when I started studying psychology and human behavior and the brain as much as I studied directing. And when you're on a movie set and you're in charge of 75 to 100 people, all of whom have different personalities and communication styles, you better understand human psychology. And so I'm not sure if poker necessarily informs my directing, but I think it's a natural outlet for my love of human behavior and psychology.
Well, do actors have tells?
Well, that's a good point too. Yeah, I think that's actually an interesting. I hadn't thought about that, so that's a really good point. I think that I do actually, and I think poker probably has helped with that. I do. I have developed over the years the ability to understand people better, and see kind of what they're thinking, and I think when they're acting, sometimes it helps. You can kind of tell when maybe it doesn't feel quite as authentic, and I think that does probably help. I haven't thought of it that way as a connection to poker, but that's a good point.
One of my dear friends who lives here and in LA, flies back and forth, is Kevin Sorbo. You work with him on.
Oh, I'm very close with Kevin. Yeah.
On What If, and will we be seeing him in this season of The Chosen?
Not this season, and I don't know if we'll see Kevin. If we here's the problem, and you bring this up, but it's actually an interesting point. Is we have not only not cast celebrities much in the show at all, just because I think that a lot of times we were just looking for the best people for the part. So the only roles Kevin could play would be Romans anyway, because he's a white guy. But I think that sometimes when you have someone whose face is really recognizable and well known, and Kevin and I are very good friends, and he's a lovely actor, but I feel like as soon as he came on screen, everyone would be thinking, "Oh, there's Kevin Sorbo.
There's Hercules."
It takes him out of the first century a little bit. And I think when it comes to period pieces like this, I think we have to be a little bit more cautious about that. But Kevin is great, and if we find a role in which you can kind of maybe almost not even recognize him, that might be cool. But I love Kevin, and we are going to work together again sometime. My movie What If is actually the first faith-based movie he ever did, and since then he's become Captain Faith-Based Movie. He's done probably 20 of them. So depending on your perspective, I can either say you're welcome or I'm sorry. But What If was the first and one of his very favorites.
Obviously, you're looking forward to working here in Utah. Have you picked out locations already?
Well, yeah, there's only, there's one that has been this incredible opportunity. We're filming at the Goshen set, which is about 40 minutes from where I am right now. I'm in Provo. And it's this unbelievable set that was built by the LDS Church about 10 years ago. That's not only an incredible filmmaking set. I mean, it's just extraordinary. But I remember when I first visited it, and I didn't want to get my hopes up because the church has never, allowed outsiders to film here. And I didn't know if it was possible. And at first it wasn't. They said no because of various reasons and factors. And then miraculously no's became yeses over this summer. It's a very long story that I'll tell sometime. But the beautiful thing about it is I've been to Israel and I've walked where Jesus walked, and I have never seen anything that was close to as authentic as this set in Goshen, because in Jerusalem, in the actual Israel, everything has now become kind of a tourist location. It's very difficult to find anything that captures that first century authenticity. And this set does that. And I felt like almost in some ways, like this was more like where Jesus walked and got me more into the spirit of where things, what happened than even when I was in Israel. So it's an extraordinary opportunity. I'm very grateful to the church for allowing us to film here. And I think some amazing things are going to come out of it. So I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to film for season 2.
People forget, it's show business. That second part of the word is business. Budget wise and all of that. I mean, the Utah Film Commission, I think they're great people to work with. Is everything falling into place?
Yeah. I mean, Utah has, as I'm sure it's great people and smart people and hardworking people. And so, it's all falling into place. I mean, every day is a new hurdle to overcome. That's what filmmaking is. We're still, because the show is free, we rely, you watch season 1 of The Chosen on our app. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to sign up for anything. It's totally free. So that means that it's on the viewers, if they love the show, to pay it forward. That's how we generate income for future episodes and seasons. And as long as they continue to do that, then we'll continue to generate income to be able to film this season. And so the fans have been extraordinarily generous, and that means that we're allowed to film season 2. So it's coming into place. The set is incredible. We're going to be here for about up until close to Thanksgiving, and then we moved to Texas to shoot the rest of the season.
Do you look at the show as a kind of ministry?
Well, I'm very careful about saying that, but yes, I think it's a career. It is a business. We're not a nonprofit. We're not a church. We're not connected with any formal church. But the calling of my life is to make Jesus known. And in fact, there's a story in the Book of Acts. I believe it's the Book of Acts. I don't want to get this wrong, and that would kind of ruin it. But when Saul is walking on the road to Damascus, and has a vision from God, and he's literally encounters God, and he's blinded, and this man named Ananias comes to Saul and removes the scales from his eyes, and his sight is restored. And that's what I believe my job is to remove the scales from eyes so that people can see Jesus even more clearly. Even those of us who've known Jesus our whole lives, sometimes you need to have a recharge of your battery to see him more clearly. So I do believe, I think that's about as much ministry. And I think that falls under the definition of ministry. So even though, yes, it is my job and it's my career and it's how I provide for my family, my wife and I and my kids, we consider it our highest calling to make Jesus known in every country, and that's what's happening with The Chosen.
Well, and that's a beautiful statement, because there are people that are, I know, a little bit reticent in talking about their faith. They'll scream their politics out, but they, when it comes to, I guess how they really feel about each other, they're a little bit hesitant to do that. You seem to not only like what you do, but you love your cast, you love your audience, you love the people that donate, and that's not because they donate. You're a man who doesn't hide those feelings.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's another part of the secret sauce of the show is pure authenticity. If you go to our YouTube channel, if you just look up The Chosen on YouTube or Facebook, we're easy to find, you'll see near daily updates. I mean, we pull back the curtain and we let you see how this show is made. We let you hear my heart. I mean, I do lots of videos where I'm just authentically saying, look, right now I'm in a bad place, but we're trying to trust God for all of this. It would be really off-brand, to use a crass term, for me to kind of try to be subtle or cute or marketing, minded about my faith. If you're going to get to know me, and I think people want to do that because they want to trust who it is that's creating and making the show about Jesus, then you're of course going to get to know my faith and my wife's faith, and so we don't hide that at all. I think that would be wouldn't make very much sense. So if that costs me a little bit of reputation in Hollywood, I'm in the position now in my life where, spiritually especially, where I genuinely don't care, and it's a superpower.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I remember working on a junket for something that was a faith-based years and years ago, and they never put the word Jesus in it. I mean, it was like, everything but.
Right. And I think that usually means people are oftentimes, even if they make a faith-based project, they're concerned about the reputation. They don't want to look uncool in the eyes of, people in Hollywood or in the mainstream media or in popular culture. And, I don't get caught up in the praise and in the passion that people have for The Chosen. I mean, I love hearing the stories of impact, but the praise that we've gotten doesn't really impact my making of the show, and the criticism we've gotten doesn't. And that really is a superpower. When you sit in front of the computer screen and the screen is blank and you have to write an episode, that blank screen doesn't care whether your audience loves your show or whether your audience hates your show. And so my responsibility is still to make the very best show that I can and to honor God in everything that I do with it. And the rest is not up to me. So I'm in that place genuinely, and that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, as we wind up our interview, there's two things I need to talk about. One is people can still donate and send you seasonal money, right? I mean, is there a website to go to?
Yeah, so I hesitate to use the word donate because, like I said, we're not a nonprofit, but there is a pay it forward option that when you're watching on the app or anytime you watch the show, if you go to thechosen.tv, www.thechosen.tv, or through the app, if you love the show and you watch it totally for free, we don't demand anything. But if you love the show and you have the means, and not everyone does, but if you have the means to do so, say, you can pay it forward. That allows us to keep offering it for free, and it allows us to do future episodes and seasons. And people have been doing that more than ever in the last 6 months since COVID hit. This is what's been so cool about what we call God's impossible math. The more free we've made it, the more easy to access we've made it, the more income has come in for future episodes and seasons. It's been extraordinary.
I think that's beautiful. The second thing is, you have a ton of people here in Utah that are actors that would love to be extras. Is there a place to go to become an extra in the show if you need them?
I hope that we have a ton of people who want to be extras, and I especially hope, and I hope this sounds politically correct, but we especially want ethnic people. We want people who look actually like you. I haven't met you before, but are you Italian? You look.
Yeah, of course, I'm Italian.
Yeah, so
I'm a Roman.
But
I am available, by the way. If you need a centurion, you can just come and get me. And
great. Well, I'll take you up on that. But we definitely need extras. So keep an eye out on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel, and then also. Unfortunately, I don't have the address in front of me, but you can give out that email address.
Sure, we'll tag this with all of that. And again, I am so excited to have this particular production here, even though it's a little while. I think it's a brilliant show. As a film critic, I was blown away by the quality of it. It did not look like one of those after school or churchy type thing. This was a movie. I mean, Roma Downey is doing stuff like this too, who's a dear friend of mine. And again, it is about quality, and that's what you learn in this business.
That's what I just wanted people of faith, especially, to have a Jesus project or a faith-based project that was as good as the shows that I love, the shows that we watch all the time, from Downton Abbey to Breaking Bad to, Better Call Saul, The Wire, all these great shows. We wanted a show. I think the greatest story ever told deserves a great show. So I don't know if I've reached the level of those, shows, but we certainly are trying to do something that people can really appreciate. And then for people who aren't necessarily of faith, who've also liked the show, I think that it gives them the freedom to watch a show. And even if they don't believe it, even if they don't believe the stories, they can just appreciate it as a good show. And that's what our goal is.
Yeah, it is well written. It's engaging. Each episode, it really is, if you dissect it just as a show, it stands up just because the plot is so interesting and all. And you've done such a great job in putting this together. VidAngel went through a lot of hell a few years ago. But for them to step up and back you on this too is a godsend.
Yeah, the VidAngel is based in Provo, and they from the beginning have embraced the show and have been almost primarily responsible for getting it out to the world. They're the ones who invented the Chosen app, which is unprecedented technology that allows you to connect directly to your Roku, Apple TV, Fire Stick, Chromecast, without a subscription or anything. You can just literally connect directly. Mm-hmm. And they came up with the pay it forward concept, but they want this show out to the world, and they've done an amazing job in getting it. And they think outside the box, which is something I've seen. I think that's kind of a Utah mentality is entrepreneurial. And maybe it's because of centuries of having to figure out things on your own, but whatever it is, this area is so entrepreneurial, and they've kind of filled in the gaps that I have in my own skill set, and it's been extraordinary to work with them.
Is it true that if people, over at Deseret Book, they buy the first season, some of that goes into the production kitty?
Oh, for sure. Well, yeah, everything. I mean, obviously, our distribution partners, get their costs covered, and everyone has to feed their families, but as every cent that we can possibly put towards future episodes and seasons is put towards that. And so people, when they buy DVDs, when they buy our devotional book, when they buy our shirts and sweatshirts, which are all kind of, conversation starters, it all goes towards future episodes and seasons.
As we wrap, I'm going to hit you up for a set visit when you get started. I'd love to come out and just kind of have a little conversation with your actors, especially Jonathan and
well, for sure. The one thing you'll have to do, though, is you'll have to take a test before COVID test.
We have
to be extremely strict now on COVID protocols, because we're going to have.
I'm actually going in for one on Monday.
But we'd love to have you out for sure.
When do you first start shooting?
Well, currently we're on track to do it sometime around October 5th or 6th. But certainly that first week of October, at some point, we'll be shooting here for about 6 weeks.
Well, congratulations on everything. This is just such a beautifully done show, technically, spiritually. It's got everything, and I think I think people just need to find it and watch it, so they can get an idea of the type of quality that's behind it.
Yeah, so just it's very easy. You can be watching within 2 minutes, and it's totally free. Just look up The Chosen wherever you get your apps on Google Play or the App Store, and you just connect directly to your streaming device. You can be watching within minutes and full quality on your TV.
Perfect. All right, Dallas, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This celebrity interview is sponsored by...
I'm Annette Civarella with Pia Anderson Moss Hoyt, Utah's leading entertainment law firm, serving clients nationwide. We provide solid, attentive representation focusing on minimizing risk, reducing cost, and protecting the reputation and privacy of our clients. Our goal is to provide you with the legal representation you need to make the right decisions and to protect you and your creative works. Call or email me for a free consultation.